Right, kia ora tātou, and welcome everyone to the first meeting of the training. First of all, I'll take apologies, and we have got one from Councillor Linwood who has sick children, so she might join us on Zoom at some stage today. Okay, so moved Councillor Holding, seconded Councillor Fanini Taiti. I don't think we have to vote on that at all, do we?
Just ask if people, just ask, is that approved?
Is that approved?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye, fantastic. Declarations of interest. Councillor Ryan, Deputy Ryan.
Just declaring a conflict of interest in item 5.2. I won't vote on that matter.
Thank you. Any other conflicts of interest today? Nope. So we'll move on to the public forum. And we have Mr. Ray Henderson here today. Welcome, Ray.
Good morning. Welcome aboard again, Mel.
Thank you.
Welcome to all the new councillors and old councillors. Right, what have I got today? Water. Now that we have a government appointed facilitator who's presumably going to be on site or somewhere nearby, I think it's time for council, that's both staff and elected, to drill down a bit on why is DIA so hell-bent on getting water infrastructure done so damn quickly? Some years ago, well, for many years, I suppose, the council's 30-year infrastructure planning seemed to sort of serve okay. Admittedly, when Labour's Three Waters raised its head, that got adjusted slightly. That showed how flexible that can be. So with this rescheduling of the water projects, and then there's some unbudgeted expenses, DIA has asked for a few things to be done, which may have been in future plans, but not in this year's budget. It seems to me that that can be quite flexible as it was before. So why can't some of those things be pushed out a bit to ease the burden? Now, I'm concerned about these things that need to be done now, according to DIA. They weren't budgeted for when we did the annual plan or the long-term plan. So how's council going to cope with that? Some projects other than water going to drop off? Are some services going to disappear? Or are we just going to run tremendously over budget for the year? So I'm concerned about how all that financially is going to be handled. And I really question the need for all this infrastructure upgrade to be done immediately, if not sooner. So I'll just leave those questions with the council. Next item is I go through and see the planning for the committees, etc. Now, it may just be an introductory planning of it, but I'm concerned I don't see a harbour committee meeting or subcommittee meeting mentioned there. Now, in light of the fact that the harbour and area and the precinct's been considered for National Historic Landmark status, it would seem even more vital that there is a harbour subcommittee to keep an eye on things there, to make sure things are done sympathetic to the area, etc., that wouldn't affect that National Historic recognition. So I'm concerned, is there going to be a harbour committee, or just has it not been mentioned in the minutes yet?
Now, let me know if you want me to respond on.
No, I'll go right through.
No worries, Jill.
That's what I normally do. I just verbally waffle.
Go
And then
for
you come with me. Our standing orders. I see it's always standard every training to go through the standing orders again. I pick up on item 19.2, which I'll bring up from the standing orders. Open voting. All items must be determined by open voting. Everyone present at a meeting must be able to see or hear how each individual councillor votes. Now, I find sitting back here as a member of the public, it's very hard to see how people vote when a vote is called for. It's not usually show of hands, it's verbal. The chair out the front there can see what's going on, but it's very hard for a person in the gallery to see what's going on. It's even worse when you watch the stream, because the stream only focuses on the person talking at the time, so you don't see the rest of the room. Unlike, say, ORC, their broadcast, they actually have all the panels of all the councillors sitting around, and you can see them all at any time. But in this chamber, whether you're here or watching it on TV, It's very hard to tell how people vote. And I suggested, as some councils do, I haven't got the figures to hand, but some councils do record the vote always of how people have voted. We get it occasionally when someone says, I want my abstention, I want my vote recorded, but other than that, we don't get it. And I suggest that we go to a policy of recording the votes, yay or nay, so anybody can go through the minutes and see how people voted. And that'll do me for the day.
All right, just to respond to a few of your things, just on the water timeframes, we absolutely share your concern. And I think what we need to do as a first instance is get a water plan over the line. And I know other councils have been granted longer timeframes, so I think that needs to be part of the discussion. So we absolutely agree that a lot of the pressure that's going on with rates is around the timeframes. But at the moment, we need to work on them being set, but we will be having discussions around that. Committees, that is the first ditch effort on that, and we are certainly looking at having some more committees, which we will be finalising, and they'll come to the December council meeting. And whether it's Harbour or Harbour Oamaru or something like that there, it's certainly in the thinking, and we will look at bringing another committee on. That will be something for councillors to discuss, but that's the intention at this stage. And just finally, in your voting on standing orders, that's something we have also identified, and really, especially with the online thing, you can't tell who's voting. We are looking at introducing a bit of a voting thing so it becomes a bit more obvious and it comes up on the live stream as well. That's a bit of a technology thing we're working on. I think we've got March-ish as a bit of an indication of dates. I'm not sure if I'm speaking out of turn there.
February, March.
February, March. So it is a direction we're going in, and we want to do that because I think there's going to be a requirement that it's a lot more open, and we want to have that in our minutes as well. And I'll just pass to Councillor Hopkins for a question.
Yeah, Madam Chair, it just occurs to me, I raised concerns are reflected by the Ombudsman. I just wonder whether, yes, we're going to have an efficient system introduced in February or March. Between now and then, maybe we should do what has been suggested and actually make a point of recording so that can be included in the minutes. Perhaps that would be an appropriate signal that we're taking this seriously.
I think that's the intention. Am I right there? Sorry, Arlene.
It's up to you, Mayor, as to whether you want all votes recorded for each decision at the moment. Just let me know and I'll record that.
Yeah, and that'll just mean if that's what councillors want to do, just taking a little bit more time after each decision to make sure that our governance advisor, while it is a bit manual, has the time to do that. But yeah, thank you very much, Ray.
Thank you.
Right, so now we will move on to the leadership reports, page 6, which is the declaration of the 13th Waitaki District Council. And it's just to report the declaration sworn in by elected members that we did earlier in the month, back on October 16th. And just recognising we've got a couple of community board members still to be sworn in, and we will be doing that at the first community board meetings respectively. Any questions, councillors? No, so I'll take a move. Sorry, Councillor Holding. What was that? Okay, moved by Councillor Holding, seconded Councillor Hopkins. All in favour, please say aye.
Yep.
And against, that's carried. And we'll move on to the Chief Executive Transition Report, and I'll pass on to the Chief Executive.
Thank you. Yes, as is customary in most councils, for the period where we have no sworn-in council, there is a general delegation given to the Chief Executive to enable the Chief Executive to be able to act under certain circumstances, not any circumstance. And the previous council gave me such a delegation just before the last election on the meeting on the 30th of September. Part of the requirement was to report back on any decisions made during that period, and I didn't make any decisions under that delegation.
Councillors, any questions on that at all? I think it's pretty self-explanatory. So Councillor Hopkins moved, we have a seconder, Councillor Cowles. So all in favour, please say aye. And against, that's carried.
Madam Chair, just recall that those two votes were
Unanimous. Thank you, Councillor Hopkins. Reminder to slow down a little. All right, so now we will move on to the appointment of the Crown Facilitator. And I'll start by moving on to Alex.
Thank you. Yeah, brief introduction to this. As part of the government's local water done well reforms, all councils were required to submit a water service delivery plan to the government by the 3rd of September, setting out how the council will meet the requirements of the legislation, including the water standards and other criteria around financial sustainability of water and investment in water infrastructure. This council submitted its plan for the delivery of water through an in-house business unit on the 27th of August. And on the 6th of October, the Secretary for Local Government sent a letter to myself rejecting the council's plan on the basis that it didn't meet the legislation, as there was not sufficient assessment of the condition of assets. And this is material to the plan, given the age of some of the district's water infrastructure. The letter is attached to this report and requests that the council undertake further work to assess the condition of assets and then review and revise its plan, including reviewing whether the plan is financially sustainable still, and it encourages the council to consider a change in delivery model. It also outlined in there that the minister would be briefed on potential use of intervention powers in the legislation. Subsequently to the letter from the Secretary for Local Government, the Mayor then received on the 21st of October, so 2 weeks later, a letter from the Minister for Local Government setting out his intention to appoint a Crown Facilitator to work with the Council, specifically to support exploration of alternative delivery models and engagement with neighbouring councils to explore collaboration in water services delivery. So whilst we do need to consider and respond to the letter of rejection from the Secretary of Local Government, and we've started some work on this, we propose to bring a paper to the next council meeting. Today, we specifically need to consider the response to the Minister's letter on the proposal to appoint a facilitator, as we need to provide a response by tomorrow. The brief and the powers of the facilitator are set out in legislation, are included as an attachment to the report. They're quite broad powers. So facilitator is probably not necessarily an accurate name in this regard, because they have powers to assist, but also to direct the council. And therefore, the council needs to decide how it wishes to respond to this. Officers have set out in the report some potential options, 3 potential options, and our recommended option is to agree to a facilitator, but with some reservations, including that you're a new council. The decision around water was the previous council's decision. That this has come to your attention, a matter of days into your triennium. You haven't had a chance to consider and respond to the Secretary of Local Government's letter. And to date, the council has been working collaboratively and in good faith with the government to progress and resolve matters.
Thank you, Mr. Palmley. Mr. Hope, did you want to add anything to that?
I think, thank you. Really probably just the challenge of providing advice in relation to this matter, as we are both the first council to have a water services plan rejected, and also the first to have the potential of a Crown Facilitator appointed. So there is no sort of precedent to base the advice on. There's really just the legislation, as the Chief Executive noted, that is included in the report, and the correspondence from the Minister. So I suppose our advice might be a little blunt in places, but that's really just because we're trying to craft up something that would give you a clear choice about the responses. But these can be, I think there is plenty of room to modify those and change the tone, really depending on the position you wish to take. So yes, we just tried to craft something that we thought would be a good starting point of the discussion for the meeting today. And really, we're really happy to answer any questions, although some of our responses may be limited, really because of the newness of this, and really us trying to interpret both the legislation and the intent of the Minister and the Secretary.
Understood. So we'll start with taking questions from councillors. Has anyone got anything they want to lead with? We'll start with Councillor Cowles, and then Councillor Hopkins, and then Councillor Slack.
Through you, Mayor Tavendale, I guess some of it is around the legislative side of it. Sort of reading into it, it says facilitator may assist and direct the council. But I guess I've got reservations that reasonable direction is not really defined in a particular fashion in there. So, I mean, who determines what reasonable is? And what resource do we have as a council if direction conflicts with existing policy, budgets, or legal advice? And I guess my other questions around the facilitator would be, would we be consulted before any escalation recommendations to the minister, and who signs off on the new plan that it meets the legislative test? So if we're going to be formulating a new plan, is that going to be the facilitator, the CE, or us as council, understanding that we've actually met that test, I suppose, or will that go through DIA? So I guess those things are areas within the, I suppose it's more the legislative of having a facilitator, but I'm just not that sure that areas that are completely well laid out. And I guess one other area is that the terms of reference authorises a facilitator to meet with other councils and stakeholders independently. Will all inter-council engagements occur jointly with us having a representative at that table? Because it could lead to misaligned messaging or negotiations without us understanding or having a mandate if that's the direction we would like to head in. So I guess they're all the questions that I have. I know there's a few of them, but it's a big subject. Thank you.
Understand. Thank you, Councillor Cowles. I'll start from just the kind of political lens and then I'll pass on to the team. I think around and I guess it's that terms of reference, which is not really clear in the terms of reference. Things like the reports to minister and that, they haven't given us any guidance on that. I would like to think we'll be asking, can we see those reports? Can we be part of those discussions? And I would have thought if they are looking at escalating, surely there's been some discussions or flags raised well before then. I would like to think that as much as there's an ability to direct in this space, that facilitation should be the first port of call. And I think, if we are open to working with rather than, battling, that, those conversations can be had in a reasonable manner and we can know where we're at. But I think, we need to probably protect the relationship a little bit to make that happen. But I'll pass on to Mr. Palmley.
Yeah, so in terms of sign off with the facilitator, the process remains the same as previously for the revised water plan. That will need to come to council and the chief executive will need to sign it off as well as meeting components of the legislation. I think in terms of the engagement with other councils, given that, whatever, if there are things that are agreed with those other councils, that the council and its officers will need to give effect to those. It's hard to see how those engagements could happen effectively without representation from the council in those discussions. And I think that's something that we'd need to discuss with the facilitator early on in terms of how that's going to work, so that we can support that process and work in a collaborative way.
Sorry, back to you, Councillor Cowles.
Yeah, look, thanks for that. I guess my question around that inter-council thing was that the wording does say independently in those terms of reference, and I guess that was just my concern around that. It's a little bit around the wording, but I tend to agree if we're working collaboratively, that shouldn't become an issue.
And I think the working with other councils, that's at this stage saying they need to be open to it. So they can't direct other councils to work with us, but if those other councils happen to have a facilitator, then that might look different. So there's a lot of water to go under the bridge in that space yet. Councillor Hopkins.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. 3 questions. One definitely to Alex, and I'm not sure to whom the other, or whom would be best to answer the other 2. Page 11, there's a reference to the fact that on page 11 of our agenda, the DIA stated at the meeting that if WDC are able to satisfy all requirements and gain approval to the WSDP, the standalone model is suboptimal. Now, I read that to mean, even if you do all the things that we've said under section H you have to do, the proposal you put to us is suboptimal. Did they amplify what they meant by that and what the consequences of that option being suboptimal would be? That's question number one. Page 13, there's a reference, sorry, page 12. There's a reference to the fact that the facilitator has the power to recommend the appointment of a specialist who has even greater powers than the facilitator. I'm just curious to know, I'm guessing the statute does provide, to whom is that recommendation made? I'm guessing it's the minister, but I'd like clarification on that. And the third question, and this one is to you, Alex, there's various references to the fact that this information has come to us prior to the inauguration of the new council and an intervention that is premature. The rejection of the plan was actually in the term of the last council on the 6th of October. Did the mayor or officers at the time, and admittedly it was only 5 days before the election, but was there any consideration given to the calling of an urgent meeting to discuss the fact that the letter had been received? Because it seems to me that on the face of it, the rejection was one that was received by the previous council. Yes, the new council has to deal with it, but it's not an intervention in our affairs. It was a response to the decision made prior to the election taking place.
I guess I'll start with that one first of all, and any specialist that's recommended will be recommended to the minister. And then I guess I take your point on the letter being to the previous council turning down our water services delivery plan, but the letter from the minister on the facilitator was directed to myself. So we're sort of crossing a bit of a bridge there, and looking back maybe doesn't achieve much, but I'll pass on to Mr. Palmer.
Yeah, so in terms of the suboptimal issue that's raised in there, I think, this is something that we explored with the DIA officials as to what is meant by that. And essentially what they're saying is that they see that the option we've gone for is not the most affordable option or most efficient option for our community and for our organisation, and that's why they regard it as suboptimal. So it is potentially, the case that we could do the work on the assets and produce a plan that is compliant with the legislation, but they would still regard it as suboptimal because they think there are other options available to us as a council that would be more cost efficient for our community. As to the consequences, not clear on that at the moment. Because when they release our assessment report, you'll see that it is only the assets assessment that they have pulled us up on. We passed all the other tests with our water services delivery plan. So I think, I don't know what the answer is on the consequences, and I suspect they don't know the answer at this stage as to what it would be. I think the point around the specialist has been covered already. It would be a recommendation to the minister from the facilitator. In terms of the calling the meeting, no consideration wasn't given to that. So whilst the letter was sent on the evening of Tuesday the 6th, I think it was, we received it on the morning of Wednesday the 7th. There was days to go before the election. We didn't understand at that stage what was actually meant by the letter, get an understanding of how we'd fallen down on that. So we wanted to get an understanding from the DIA officials who couldn't meet with us until the Tuesday after the elections, which is when they met with us to explain further where we had fallen down in terms of our water services delivery plan. So there wasn't consideration given because we weren't understanding of what the issues were fully that had been raised and how we need to respond to them at that stage. So if that answers your question.
Thank you.
Councillor Slack.
Yeah, particularly thank you, Mr. Palmer, because basically I just want to echo what Mr. Palmer says or what I read into the letter that we...
It's question time, Mr. Slack.
Sorry?
Remember, it's question time.
In that regard, I just basically agree with Mr. Palmer, and I beg the indulgence of the meeting. This is my first one. No doubt I will put the foot in my mouth at times, but I'm happy to be corrected. Thank you.
All good, not a problem. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you. I guess I appreciate we're in uncharted territory here, and I don't know that my questions can probably be addressed, but I want to raise them because I think it's important that they're included, I think, in our response, or, you know, to get some clarity over them as soon as possible. So my questions are mostly around, Brent touched on one earlier, I guess the level of information sharing that there's going to be between the Crown Facilitator and the Minister and Council. Will we have access to those monthly progress updates to the Minister? Can we request that, or even summaries of that advice? And, you know, if we look at the workshops that we had on water in the past term to bring the community along with the journey, I guess I would like some clarity on how we can communicate you know, this next step with our community, you know, so we're getting that information from the Minister, from the facilitator, but so that we can be engaging in communications through this process with our community too. So yeah, just keen to get some clarity on that if that's known, but also just to highlight that, I guess, going forward. And then the other question I had is, I guess, will there be like clear parameters for requests made to staff? Is there any additional workload anticipated for them through this process? Just, I guess, appreciating all of the work that staff have done in recent months. Yeah, just keen to get an idea of what workload looks like for them through this next step.
I'll start on that and invite Paul to add to it. But I think in terms of the progress updates, I think that's something that we should ask. And I think that's important in the first meeting with the facilitator that you set that out. But you could include that in your response to the Minister as well, if that's something that you wanted to do. I think in terms of the communication side of things, I think we'll need to give consideration to that, and I think we need to work with the facilitator on what that looks like. We thought that the public workshops were beneficial, and I would be encouraging that whatever we do, that by default engagement with the facilitator in this space should be within the public domain, so that people can see what's how the facilitator is playing a role engaging with the council. In terms of workload for staff, I don't think we've sized this yet because we're not still fully understanding what the facilitator will want to do and how they'll want to operate. But undoubtedly, it will mean more work. But I don't know that it will mean that much more work because we've got more work to do anyway to revise the plan. So I think it's we'll just have to see how that goes. I think at this moment in time, we haven't been able to size that. Don't know whether you want to add to that, Paul.
Yes, I would. Thank you. I think the workload issue, even though we haven't assessed it, is going to be of growing significance because I think whatever happens, we really can't move an implementation date beyond effective July 2027. That's effectively 18 months away. It was 2 years away, at June, sort of when we submitted the plan. So we have lost time with this process because really and we can't really wait till almost the final acceptance of the plan to start implementing the changes we're going to need to make to deliver water under a new regime, whether that's in-house or through some other mechanism. So I think probably got real concerns about that. And I think it is clear this will not be this is only the first report that you will all see about this, and there will be many reports to follow. And I think it's something that we probably in the next report need to give an outline of some of the really the timetable that we'll be looking at. And the potential ways to deliver under sort of the various options. And even that will be at a relatively high level. So yes, it is of concern.
And just on the info sharing side of things, I think that's really important for us to put that request in our letter. And I guess in the workshop side of things, they seem to work really well. And, the Ombudsman is requesting that we do a lot more of that space as well. So I would hope that left hand and right hand will be talking and the facilitator will be open to, doing the majority of that work in public. I think it's healthy. So I'll take Councillor McCone and then back to Councillor Hopkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What happens if we don't reply tomorrow? And if we do all this work and it's done and we get to the end of the chain by June, where do we sit after that? And so where I'm coming from then, we're being asked, we'll be giving an administrative solution for a practical problem created by administrative legislation. And I'm just wondering where the playing field is, where it's level. So, how much further do we go? I'm a great believer of running things in parallel, so we work together, not against each other. And I'm just wondering how much do we see in working with our terms of reference against their, in line with their terms of reference? Is that a possibility?
I guess from a political point, I'll start that answer, which is if we decline to or don't respond to them or decline the request, my guess is they're going to be moving up the chain of opportunity for how they intervene, and whether that's a water specialist or moving into the commissioner sort of mode. This is a stepped approach, and I think they've gone in first of all with it's a strong approach, and it's expecting a lot for a new council that hadn't been sworn in even when they were given that directive. But I also think it's an opportunity for a collaborative approach where turning that down probably moves us more into the directive space, and whether or not we have a role in decision making after that would be probably unlikely. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's accurate. I think, not responding or turning this down would be seen as, an act of non-collaboration. And I think the minister would then have to consider the other powers that he has under the legislation. In terms of the terms of reference, I think, the terms of reference for the facilitator are set out in legislation. I think we need to work within those terms of reference. Our own terms of reference don't really apply, but if it's a collaborative model, there might be scope for, discussing that with the facilitator, but it's their terms of reference that will now apply.
So that question was asked on the hope that there'll be something different, but I pretty much knew the answer beforehand. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCone. Councillor Hopkins, back to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Noting that the Secretary of Local Government says that his expectation is that we will consider different scenarios, and that the terms of reference on page 28 of our agenda for the facilitator include allowing the facilitator to assist two or more territorial authorities to negotiate and determine the terms of a joint agreement, provided under 2 that the relevant territorial authorities agree to the Crown facilitator having that role. Have we had any indication from any neighbouring local authorities that they are interested either in principle or in detail in entering into any such negotiations for a joint arrangement?
So the group of councils called Southern Waters now, I think they're going under the banner of, in agreeing their water services delivery plan, agreed within that the door remained open to both Waitaki and to Timaru to still join that. So that is still an option. They still are open to collaboration with us. Timaru District Council as well is still open to collaborative opportunities and exploring what those look like. And then the Selwyn District Council as well is also continues to say that it is open to collaborative opportunities, although I caution that there has been an election, a change of administration there, so whether that still persists after that I'm unclear on, but certainly prior to the election they were still open to collaborative opportunities.
Supplementary, if I may, that's somewhat surprising given the previous decision they had made. Would distance in matters like that be an issue if they were to signal some interest in being involved?
Sorry, I'll just answer that. I think we're better to stay out of the solution base at the moment because we can go down a rabbit hole, and I think we're going to need to do that with more information. Now, I do have a notice of motion from Councillor Slack that we can move on to if I don't have any more questions. All right, so I'll just get Arlene, if you can, to put up the notice of motion on the board. This has been circulated to councillors. As we take the vote, we will take it one point at a time. And this is just, there we go. And the number 5 there is where the changes are made. So I'll give you a wee bit of time just to get yourself across that. And then I'll call for, I've obviously got a mover and councillor Slack. I'll call for a seconder for that. And then we can enter into discussion.
So just to clarify procedurally, and Arlene, correct me if I'm right, I think there needs to be a motion from councillor Schlack. So a notice of motion needs to be supplied days before the meeting via myself to be able to be a notice of motion. But I think councillor Slack can move a motion to be able to amendment motion to,
Okay.
to the proposed recommendations there.
So, yep, not a problem. Would you like to move a amendment, councillor Slack?
Yes, as is put on the screen, I'd like to move a motion that basically is towards option number 2 that has been proposed by officers. However, option 2 with a change in the comments.
Perfect. So you're obviously comfortable with numbers 1 to 5 to stay, 1 to 4 to stay as they are, changes to number 5, and then 6 to 8 to stay as they were? I'll give you a wee bit of a moment just to make sure it's just a bit of a procedural. We can take it in bits if you're only comfortable with a part of it. Councillor Hopkins?
My understanding is, well, the email that councillor Schlack has circulated inviting us to consider his amendment included the deletion of the words "the appointment may not be necessary" as under 5B. And the resolution or recommendation that he circulated did not include those words which remain on the screen. And I'd seek clarification of that, please.
I think you're absolutely correct there. That was the intention. So we'll just remove those words.
Yeah.
That was an error.
So in the red text is councillor Schlack's suggestion. So you'd like under B to remove "the appointment may not be necessary as to date." Is that correct?
Yeah.
No, it's not to date.
There was a wee bit of a change around, so I'll let councillor Schlack confirm that one.
The words "the appointment may not be necessary as" are to be deleted.
What do you, sorry, what did you want deleted on there?
The appointment may not be.
The appointment may not be necessary as.
Okay. And then
And that is now correct, to date, etc. Yes.
okay.
Okay, so councillor is comfortable with the motion as it stands. I will take everything one point at a time and we can discuss it in that respect. I think that makes it a bit easier. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Downing, the seconder. All right, thank you very much. And I'll let you start with things.
Yeah, if I can speak to the motion, in my view, the option 2 is basically option 1, only then with comments. And if you look at option 1, there is some lines there that I consider to be positive. And I'd like to quote from it. "It is reasonable to expect that the facilitator will have a very clear view of what the contents of a compliant plan will be, and therefore the work required to produce this plan. It is also more likely to get some level of support and resourcing from the DIA and reduce the level of uncertainty, especially as it relates to developing both the annual plan and the long-term plan. It is my view that the comments as they are worded as is proposed by officers changes the tone of the message that we sent to the minister in response to this letter, and therefore I would like to change the comments to what I proposed and what is now on screen, and picking up from what Mr. Hope said, that they were open to actually get our view on the comments. I think that these comments will send out a message of cooperation and collaboration towards the minister and the facilitator. And I would like to see that being applied simply to send out a more positive message, which also then still conveys much of the original intended message as was proposed by officers.
Thank you. Do I have any other people wanting to speak on that? Councillor Holden. Mike, please. Holden.
I'll be voting against the amendment. I think it would be good to have in here to clear to our community that we have been working in good faith with DIA and we have followed a process through consultation and the right things, but then the process has sort of not fell down, but it's a two-way street where I think the community knows that there's
And I guess when we get down to and probably 5 is going to be a discussion piece, we can probably open up for conversation a bit more again when we get to that space, so that we cover off the first ones. And so do we have any other questions on the overall motion?
No, just one other very quick question, for the benefit of people who are watching on screen. I think the text B5B in black should be deleted because it's actually been replaced by the text 5B in red.
Yeah. Right, so what we'll do is I will take the first 4 points. I'm going to do them individually, and then we might actually open up for discussion on number 5 in case anyone wants to, because I do think that we've got a bit of time on that one and we want to make sure we get this right. So first of all, recommendation number 1 receives a letter of 6th October from the Secretary of Local Government, Mr. Paul James. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And against? That's carried unanimously. Okay, so number 2 agrees to not formally respond to the letter from the Secretary of Local Government until the matter of the Crown Facilitator is resolved to allow for full consideration of the matters raised. So I'll put that. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And against? That's carried. Number 3, and is there anyone that wants to speak to this, I guess, before I do go on to put in this motion, which is around the terms of reference? No, well, I'll put the motion receives the letter and terms of reference of 21st of October 2025 from the Minister of Local Government, Simon Willits. Sorry, not Willits. I'll put that. All in favour, please say aye. And against? That's carried unanimously. I haven't been watching on the screen to see what Councillor Linwood's doing, sorry.
I've said aye to all 3.
Okay, thank you. I will check with you from now on.
Oh, good.
All right, so now moving on to number 4. Is there any discussion to be had on that, which is appoint the Crown Facilitator? I'll start with Councillor McCone.
Just one comment, we don't have a choice.
Yeah. You've got a sort of choice. So that is accepts the appointment of a Crown Facilitator. I'll put that. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And against? Right, and Courtney voted on the ayes there, so that is passed unanimously as well. So now we'll move on to number 5, which is just probably the wee bit more nuanced. So this is basically the intent of this motion is whether or not we accept the facilitator without reservations. So it's basically a full let's work together kind of approach, or whether we do say, hey, we are happy to take this on board, but we have some concerns about how quick this has played out and that kind of thing. So I'll start with Councillor Hopkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Perhaps echoing the comments just made in respect of the vote on recommendation 4 from Councillor McCone, I think we would be putting the district, its residents, and indeed, in my view, the council at risk, unnecessary risk, if we were to ignore or reject the proposal. But I think it is entirely appropriate that we signal that we have some concerns, because it indicates that, well, A, that those concerns exist, but B, that we don't intend to be meekly compliant in every instance on every matter. And I think I think the amendment mooted or proposed by councillor Schlack, deleting the words "the appointment may not be necessary," is prudent. It is a nuanced and subtle change, but I think by voting for a B that starts with "to date, the council has been working in good faith," etc., I'm satisfied that we have signalled to those in Wellington who are making calls on this matter that we are a serious player, taking the matter seriously and endeavouring as best we can to achieve an outcome that reflects community sentiments and preferences, as well as responding to the clear signals that two governments in succession have now sent regarding the reform of water or the delivery of water services nationwide. So I will be voting in favour of the amended 5A and B as moved by councillor Schlack.
Thank you. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you. I guess I just want to echo a lot of the comments that Councillor Hopkins made and signal that I will also be supporting Councillor Schlack's motion. No council ever wants to find itself in this position, but I think it does present some opportunities. And if we look at like the past few months that we've had workshopping water in some real depth, it's given us a stronger understanding of the challenges and expectations and to bring the community along with us. That's been a real positive, and I hope that continues. And that's why I'd like to reflect in our response and really highlight opportunities for communication between the minister and the facilitator and the community. And I think it's important that we do highlight the work that we've been doing in terms of working with other councils. I think if we look at the previous decision, everyone had different reasons for voting the way that they did. But for me, it was never being against collaboration. And I said that at the time, it was about ensuring that we had all of the information that we needed. And like Mr. Henderson said earlier in the public forum, there were concerns with the speed with which we were being asked to make that such a significant decision. So I think this is a process that can keep us at the table and where decisions can be made with us and not for us. Really want to highlight the emphasis of getting a good communications plan in place and looking at that water services advisory group as well. But I think this is a good opportunity for us to be working constructively and as equal partners moving forward.
Thank you. We'll move on to Councillor Lewis, then McCone and then Kells.
Thank you, Mayor Tappendale. Yes, I'd just like to echo the sentiments from Deputy Mayor Ryan and Councillor Hopkins. I think the removal, the Councillor Schlack's correctly identified, to remove the line "the appointment may not be necessary" is quite adversarial, and I think the revision sits in a more conciliatory fashion. And I think that's really important considering what's in front of us. We want to get off on the right foot, so I will be voting in favour. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McCone.
Yeah, I will also be supporting it. It is straight to the point, tells exactly where we sit and what we want done, and speed and in communication. And I think that's the best way to work together. So I have no problem in supporting that in its entirety.
Thank you. Councillor Kells.
Thank you. I'll be supporting this as well. I think it is important that we work together to get these results. I echo Councillor Ryan's discussion around a good communication plan and keeping our community with us on this one. But I think this is a really great way for us to be able to work together and actually get the best outcome possible. I think entirely right that we all had our own reasons for voting the way we did previously. But this here is really that opportunity that we've had to be able to explore all options. So, yep.
Councillor Thowning.
Likewise, I'm in support. I think we just unanimously accepted the facilitators. In fact, it's not necessary will be a bit contradictory. It is an opportunity to get total clarity on exactly what it is the DIA wants, and any other nuances can be best dealt with with the facilitator.
Right, councillors, anyone else who wants to speak on this? And I guess just from my perspective, you know, we have been sort of backed into this position somewhat. We want to do it in good faith with government to sort of say, you know what, you're not comfortable. This is a first ditch effort and we are open to working with you because we want the best outcome for Waitaki and we need to be at the table to do that. I will take these one at a time and I only just foreshadow, and it's probably a question to staff, just on our conversations today around information sharing and open workshops, whether you would like to have some kind of extra motion in there to cover that off, or whether that is a bit taken through the conversation.
So I don't think another motion is necessary in there at this stage. I think the default position that the last council agreed was that workshops are open to the public. So that position remains unless this council chooses to revise that position going forward.
Perfect. So I will take them one at a time. So agrees to note that council's response. We're looking at A for now. Council is concerned that this action has been taken before the newly formed council has been inaugurated and had the opportunity to meet formally and consider the letter of 6th of October relating to the water services delivery plan. So I'll put that. All in favour, please say aye. And against? And Courtney also voted aye in that, so that was passed unanimously. Okay, so now we move on to 5B. To date, the council has been working in good faith with the DIA and has already commenced work on the agreed scope to achieve an amended compliant water services delivery plan pending the new council's decision on the response to the letter from the secretary. So I'll put that. All in favour, please say aye. And against? Was that against Councillor Holding? Right, so that's passed. And Councillor Linwood was also an aye. So now we'll move on to 5C. In view of the time constraints placed on the delivery of a compliant water services delivery plan, council requests that a formal appointment for the Crown facilitators carried out as expediently as practice. I can't pronounce that name very well. So the council can commence work to achieve such plan collaboratively with the Honourable Amy Adams as soon as possible. So I'll put that. All in favour, please say aye.
Madam Chair, I won't be voting against it, but I'm not 100% convinced that this needs to be in there, because I'm pretty sure that either the Secretary for Local Government's letter or the Minister's letter says that the facilitator will be appointed the day after, will start working the day after the appointment is confirmed. So I don't think there's going to be any evident delay. I may have got that wrong, and if I have, so be it. I apologise. But as I say, I won't vote against it, but I'm not sure it's necessary.
As soon as it's gazetted, yes, I'll let Councillor Slack respond to that.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Hawkins. It's basically that sets the tone. It sets the tone of the message going back to the Minister. And if I may, there's one other thing I'd just like to clarify a little, and that's basically on remarks that have been made or things that have been said during workshop, is it's not my intention here to rush into any decision. My intention here, by getting the Ms. Amy Adams appointed as soon as possible, is preserve the time that's made available to us. Every day that is delayed is a day wasted, hence why I have worded it the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Slack. Now, we wouldn't always have a conversation around this, but I think this is a really important topic to just make sure we step this out well. So I will put that. So all in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And against? That's carried unanimously. And then we move on to number 6. Agrees to bring forward the desktop analysis of water asset condition to be provided within the existing resources. So I will put that. All in favour, please say aye. Okay, and against? That's carried unanimously again. Number 7, agrees to fully consider all aspects of the Secretary of Local Government's letter, including necessary funding and resources for critical water asset condition assessment within 1 month of this meeting. So I'll put that. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. And against? That's carried unanimously. And then finally, notes that a further report to Council will detail next steps and funding requirements to complete all work necessary to satisfy outstanding requirements in the Water Services Delivery Plan to comply with the Act. So I'll put that. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And against? That's also carried unanimously. So thank you, team. And we have a wee bit more time before morning tea at 15:15. So we will move on to the next report, which is the appointment of the Deputy Mayor.
Happy to move, Madam Chair.
I was hoping to move that one from the chair this time.
Turning back.
But I love your enthusiasm, so I'll take you as a seconder. And just to speak to that, I'm really keen to give Councillor Fanini Tahiti a little bit more time back, because I think that a lot of ways her value really lies in her relationships in Wellington and the work she's doing with the Pacific Island Community Group. So I really wanted to give her space for that. Well, I'm really pleased to see we've still got her skill set around the table to help us in that space. Councillor Ryan has really stepped up, and I think giving her an opportunity to grow and some, just ability to move forward in that space. She's got some fantastic skills, and I think we can really utilise them. So I look forward to having her by my side, but obviously we have an open council and you are all playing a part in that. So I will, if there's no questions or comments on that, I'll put the motion. So all in favour, please say aye. And against? That's carried unanimously. Congratulations, Deputy Mayor Ryan. Did you want to say anything?
Yes. Thank you, and happy that this item wasn't quite as controversial as the last. Yeah, I guess just want to express my gratitude to everyone around this table, councillors, Mayor Tavendale and staff and everyone in the community for the support and encouragement that I've received since this announcement was made last month. And it's been really heartening to hear from so many people who, I think, even with the massive challenges that are in front of us, are feeling optimistic about what we can achieve as this new team together. And I think that says a lot about, I think, the strength and resilience of this district, and it's something that I'll carry with me into this role. Also wanted to acknowledge Councillor Hana Fanini Tahiti for the mana visibility and leadership that you brought to this position, Hana, particularly for our Pacifica community, and it's a real privilege to follow your example, and yeah, especially grateful for your encouragement and support. It's interesting, I've had a few people comment that not enough has been made of Waitaki having its first female mayor and now its first female mayor and deputy, but maybe that's just Waitaki. If we look across the district, women already carry so much of leadership in clubs and businesses and in boards, and maybe that's the point. Maybe it shows that women in leadership has become that we're just normal in Waitaki, and it's not something that needs to be made a big deal of, because it's just simply part of who we are as a district, and that in itself I think is something that we can be really proud of. I'm really excited about what's ahead for this team. The challenges are big, but I think so is our collective passion for this district, and really grateful for the confidence placed in me and looking forward to the term ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. So with a wee bit of time to up our sleeve, I think we can probably bite off the governance structure. How do we feel? Right, so we'll start there, and I guess just a comment around this is we haven't had a lot of time on the ground. We've been moving pretty fast with some pretty big topics in front of us since we hit the ground this triennium. So we are wanting to spend a bit more time. There was a discussion with Ray this morning around things like where does the harbour fit into it. I've sort of started the conversation with the team around things like a strategy and advocacy kind of committee, and keen to sort of move us really strongly in that space and look at how our work here also echoes the work we do in Wellington. So we've got a wee bit of work still to do with myself and councillors and the CE to see how that all works, but we want it at the moment just to get us up and running and a bit legal and get some, you know, councillors being paid, and it is at this stage it is the minimum rate until we are able to finalise things. So we're keen to do that fast. So the next meeting we will be up and running a bit more. There's just been a few time constraints on that, and what that also gives is an opportunity for councillors to feed in on where they've been placed or not placed, and that's a moving feast. So open for that. So this is a first stitch effort at that. That's probably my comment. Arlene, did you want to add anything to that at all?
No, thank you.
No. Right, so do we have any questions, councillors? Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, Madam Chair, couple of things. I noticed that the new hearings panel is going to be looking, as it does now, at resource consents, appeals against decisions relating to the classification of dogs, reserve management plans, which we did with the Puketapu Reserve in the last term. And I see you've added bylaw reviews, which previously have been conducted, I think, by full council, and development contributions, where there was previously, again, a development contributions committee. So I'm assuming that your preference is not to have that DC committee, but to assign that to the hearings panel. That's question number one. Is that correct? Two other matters that one's a pretty minor one. I noticed we've got a list of new councils, or sorry, new committees and matters that may need to be considered. There's a range of joint committees and external groups. There were 2 zone committees for the administration of matters relating to the Waitaki River. There was an Upper Waitaki Zone Committee and a Lower Waitaki Zone Committee. Councillor Cowles was on one and I was on the other as the council's representative. Those zone committees have been disbanded, but a joint council committee has been set up. And there doesn't appear to be any reference to that in this list, and I think it is an oversight that needs to be at least considered, because I think the intention is to have a council committee with some community representation, but also appointees from ECAN, Waimati and ourselves. And the other question I have is, at what point, I regard the Chief Executive's Employment Committee as one of the most important committees in the council. And I've frequently said that I don't believe its meetings have been formal or agended or minuted. And what I do want is an assurance, or I'm asking, when are we going to have an opportunity to consider as a full council how we as a council want our Chief Executive Employment Committee to operate, and what relationship we want it to have with the full council, because I don't believe it's been adequate or appropriate in the past.
Okay, so I'll start there with the DC's committee. Now, that one I did actually have sitting out, and I probably have missed that, as you chairing in my notes. So I'll just pass to Arlene on that one.
My understanding of the development contribution space is that the legislation is changing very soon and that committee will no longer be required, but I can look into that further for you.
Yeah. So we'll do a bit more work in that space, because it was my intention to have you on and I'd missed that in reading through this, to be honest. So we'll check that out, but at this hustle, that's fine. Zone committees, to be honest, I don't have enough information. I knew that the zone committees, as they had been disbanded. It's probably something I need to look into, and I probably don't have enough information in that space at the moment. Arlene, did you want to add something there?
Regarding the zone committees, they haven't yet been replaced. There is a leadership group, which I understand has met once, but there's no formal committee or terms of reference for that yet. So I was waiting to receive that from ECAN, and then we'll bring that back to council. Yeah.
And then just finally on the Chief Executive's Employment Committee, I've certainly heard the message that, you know, we want to make it a little bit more formal and to add a bit more process around that. This is the first effort at that. And like I've said, this whole committee structure is still up for discussion. And I think us as a council need to spend a bit of time on it. The December timeframes is probably the only risk I see in that, is that we're not going to have as much space to have that full group conversation. So maybe it's that if you bring your concerns to me, and I'll do my very best to incorporate that into a structure that works. I'm just aware, I think we've got about a week and a half or something like that before we need to finalise some stuff on that, Arlene.
Yes, we only have about a week and a half to finalise the remuneration structure. So that is what councillors at different levels will be paid, but we can continue to refine the governance structure over for as long as you need. And yes, and regarding the question about what's included in the hearings panel, the terms of reference for that panel will come back to the next meeting, and that will be the time that you can suggest changes to that.
Okay. Next up, we've got Deputy Mayor Ryan, Councillor McCone, and then Councillor Holden.
Thank you. Appreciate that this isn't actually related to our remuneration structure, but just noting in matters to consider in stage 2 that the Water Services Advisory Group is under that. And I just wonder, well, I guess I was interested for staff how that's progressed since we made that decision in the last term, but also I would just wonder, with the appointment of a facilitator and the expertise and knowledge that people that had been sort of discussed as being involved in that advisory group may bring, whether that is too important to wait to stage 2. Just, yeah, I guess interested in some feedback in that space.
So you may recall that the terms of reference for that group were agreed at the last council meeting on the 30th of September, so not too long ago. And yeah, we have progressed approaches to people to potentially be on that advisory group following some names that were supplied to us. I think I would like to discuss that more fully in terms of where that sits with the work that now needs to be done. That advisory group was proposed on the basis that the council would be setting itself up to deliver water in-house. And it comes back to your question around resources and what direction you want to take in response to the Secretary for Local Government's letter. Because if we are going to accept the invitation, which the facilitator is going to be very focused on under their terms of reference to explore other delivery options, there's going to be a lot of work on that. And that calls into question, are we still going down that in-house route? Or are we not? And I think that's something for you to decide as to whether you are going to explore those other options, which is clearly the encouragement of government. If that's the case, would putting in an advisory group that's purely looking at how we're set up to deliver in-house, would that be wasted effort and within the context of limited resources? And I did mention this in my last report to the last council. We've been really stretched as a council, dealing with transformation, dealing with reforms and everything else that's thrown at us. We have limited capacity. So I think it's a consideration. Where does that sit now that we've had the response from the government, and how much of that is a priority compared to other things that we need to do in that water space if we're going to meet the government's requirements and avoid further intervention? So it's a question of priorities, I think, really.
Councillor McCone.
Councillor Ryan's pretty much asked some of my questions. I've got 3 or 4 actually. So firstly, stage 1, this is just a tick box exercise for administration, and then we can flesh it out in stage 2 as described further down on page 38. Is that correct?
Absolutely, and I think it's a tick box, but even stage 2 of it, outside the remuneration we need to set, but outside of that, this can be a moving fee. So if it's not working, we can revisit.
Right. Okay, and to reply to Alex's question, I still think an advisory group outside the council and private enterprise would still be useful. I don't think that they need to focus. So where I'm coming from, they're completely independent and can focus on everything outside, be it, well, in-house is now off the table, as we can probably see, but and other options that are out there and probably help work in tandem. They don't have to involve staff's time, but they can sit out there and be fleshed out. And we have a previous councillor who was very involved in that, and I think we should use his skills and let all that run together. That's for the council here to decide, but I think that could still be looked at. And the third thing being our independent chairman of PAR, is that a requirement we have to roll that over? And I'm thinking of continuity with everything that's going on. Do we actually have to do that?
Yes, Alvin.
So in terms of power, you do need, some sort of audit and risk committee. That's one of the requirements, and you need someone to chair it. So it's not compulsory that you roll over the, current chair. The proposal is to advertise that role, which the current chair would be able to apply for that. But you don't have to roll them over. That's your choice as a council as to what you want to do. I think in terms of your comments about the advisory group, the terms of reference of the advisory group are very much focused on how we set ourselves up internally to deliver water. So if you wanted a group that's doing different things, that's a different terms of reference. But they can't operate independently. They need the support of your council staff to be able to operate. And the expectation is that there'll be agendas and meetings and things fed to them, but equally there'd be stuff coming back from them that would then need to be actioned. Whether it be bringing it to your attention as a council or, the team needing to do things. So it's a resource requirement, but that's a change in terms of reference if you want them to be looking at different options for delivery.
And just on the independent PAR, there was two things there, he's still working through some audit processes and things. So I thought a little bit of continuity until we had someone in that role was needed. And so that's why I've suggested that. But I do think a process at the end of each training keeps it transparent, and it means that we are just checking, is that still what we're looking for, skill set? And I think that's a discussion we can have as a group. But obviously that's in the paper in front of us, so it's open for discussion.
Today or further down the track in stage 2?
Or for the PAR, and there is a discussion in here and a decision to be made in here on going to the market. So that is a today discussion. We can look at the setup of how we do our PAR and things afterwards, but there is a recommendation in today's agenda to go to the market on the PAR and to basically extend the current independent chair's role until a new or him again, I guess, is in that role officially. So that's what the recommendation is today. So we'll have a chance to step that out if you want. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, Madam Chair, with regard to the Water Services Advisory Group, circumstances alter cases. And the fact is that the letter sent to us on the 6th of October pretty substantially altered the case. And if we read the material that we've been debating this morning, the Secretary for Local Government says the expectation is we consider other options in addition to the one we alighted upon. DIA is quoted in these reports today as saying that our original decision was suboptimal. So even if we passed all the Section H tests, which are pretty comprehensive, it's pretty much a catch-all clause, even if we passed all of those, if we then reverted to what we had previously intended, it is likely that DIA would say, we're still not happy, because that's precisely what Mr. Palmley signalled they had advised us was the case. So I would urge you to consider pressing pause on the Water Services Advisory Group until such time as it's clear what our actual option is going to be, at which point the details and particularities can be embellished, enhanced with contributions from appropriate people outside and inside the council. But as of now, I just don't think I think let's get an engagement with the facilitator first and foremost.
Just to respond there, I think I'm open to taking a motion if there is a feel and a wish for it, and then we can have a debate around that and a discussion around that. I don't think we need to have that discussion and that debate right now. So if at the end of the recommendations that we're going to work through, there is a will for someone to move, because obviously that has disbanded at a stage, that idea. If the Water Services Advisory Group, if we have someone who wants to move in second
With
district,
your permission, then I will move that the.
That'll come to it, please. We're not there just. We're not there just yet. So we'll get through the rest that we have got in front of us first. Do you want to add that?
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. The Water Services Advisory Group was raised under the matters to consider in stage 2 of the review. The Deputy Mayor was questioning whether we should consider that now. My recommendation to you is that you're going to get a report on water at the next council meeting, including what's required, and what we'll try and do an assessment of what resources are required. And you'll also get the stage 2 bit of the committees. Then I think looking at them alongside each other once we've assessed the size of the job. And what role, we can cover that off in the role in the report around water services, what role that group, what the terms of reference are and what role it might play in this or not. And then you can consider it in the round then when, we've got more information on what's going to be required in that water space.
All right, Councillor Slack.
Taking into account what Mr. Parmley has just said, I just wonder, it's more of a question than anything. The terms of reference of this advisory group were set obviously before we knew we're going to have a facilitator. So is there a requirement to actually just review those terms of reference? And just to put context around it, does the advisory group actually interact directly with the facilitator or purely only with this council?
Right, so I'm just having a wee look at the way we've gone about things. And I guess that number 1 recommendation, just making sure I didn't have any other speakers on this before I go further. No, there were number 1, it does have a bit of establish a stage 1 of the committee structure. So I guess it's whether or not anyone feels like there's a need for an amendment on that. Or I'll take, basically, I'm willing to take a motion anyway. Do I have anyone wanting to move anything in that space? We'll start with number 1.
Madam Chair, for the purposes of debate, I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, so the first recommendation, and recommend, noting that we've got some appointments to make after this. I've got a movement to agree to establish stage 1 of the committee structure. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ryan. Right. Any discussion on that?
Look, just at this, there is a procedural matter that just needs to be noted, I think, at the outset. The hearings panel does consider a range of matters, including dangerous dogs, reserve management plans and bylaws. The one issue...
So just, if I'll stop you there, because we can discuss that in number 6 when it comes to appointing to the hearings panel. Okay.
Well, I presume that we were moving all of them. I certainly was. I'm perfect.
Are you happy to move all of them?
Absolutely. I was perfectly happy to move everything from 1 through to, just to bear with me, 1 through to 12.
And Deputy Mayor Ryan, you're happy to support that? Okay, I will take them individually, and I will just to update on the hearings panel side of things. Obviously, we've got Courtney Linwood in there as the hearings panel chair. She will need to undertake some chair training to get into that space, which there is an opening for in March. So with you sitting there in support, because I think that's a really good training opportunity, that means that until then, if there's anything that requires that level of chair training, that we can have you come through as the deputy in that role. So we've got that relatively well covered off, and I think it's really good to grow some of our other councillors in that space. So we've got a bit more about, more councillors available to jump onto those kind of committees. So is there any, if we put the whole lot of them, is there any other questions in this space, councillors? No. Yeah.
I would like them individually if that's okay, because I object to 3, 4 and 5.
Okay, well, I'll put them individually. Right, so first of all, recommendation 1, I'll put that. All in favour, please say aye.
Okay.
And against? That's carried unanimously. Okay, we'll move on to appoint the following members to the Audit and Risk Committee: Councillor Thowning, Councillor McCone, Councillor Hopkins, Councillor Schlack and Councillor Cowles. Any conversation on that at this stage? Right, I'll put that. All in favour, please say aye. And against? That's carried unanimously. Moves into number 3, instructs the Chief Executive to advertise for expressions of interest in the role of the independent chair of the Audit and Risk Committee. Councillor McCone, did you want to speak on that?
Yes, I do. So as said previously, I think continuity is very important, especially in the current frame of where we're in. Again, it's an independent outside look. Our current chair has been here for 3 years, I believe.
He's been on council for longer than that.
Not been on, but he's actually got a handle on how the place runs and what's going on. And I think with what we're facing and what's coming through, I think it would be silly now to upset that system. And secondly, an independent chairperson of audit and risk, do we have the opportunity to add one further independent outside director?
Okay, so on both of those, and obviously this is up for a vote. My thought was this isn't performance based, and I know that the current independent chair is really keen to continue in that role. He's already indicated that, and I think we can certainly take that on board because I agree that there is a continuity kind of space here that we need to take seriously. When it comes to what was the other part of that, sorry?
The role description and what it is, other than, is that a change or is that just again a process?
It is one that I have circulated to you all, and it's really with the idea that we can still massage that and change it up a little bit. So that's something that we can, as a council, change up, and then will be approved between us two. But I certainly am open to that being a discussion that you all can take a part in. Additional member, that's certainly been raised, and I think that there's, a viability in that discussion, but that's possibly part of stage 2, so we can decide if that's something we want to go down. But take your point, and I think it's not necessarily a bad call, but we probably need a budget around that too, so there's a wee bit more to do. Councillor Lewis.
Is there any legal obligation on us to advertise that role?
There's no legal obligation for us to go to market at all. That's our decision. And I guess that was probably me just trying to make sure that the way we operate is independent, is transparent, and that, it's seen as an open process. Right, so I will, if there's no more questions, I will put that. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And against? Right, we've got 1 no there with Councillor McCone, all others were for, and that's carried. So then moves on to number 4, which is the same discussion, delegates myself. Well, it's just myself. It had originally had myself and you, but the role to approve the job description, and just reiterating again that I'm open for us to all work on that before we approve that one. So if we're happy, I'll put that. All in favour, please say aye. And against? Against, abstain. Councillor McCone abstained on that one. Everyone else was for, so that's carried. Right, so we'll move on to the temporary reappointment of the former Audit and Risk Chairman, Simon Neal, until the position of Independent Chairman is filled. Same kind of conversation. Any questions on that? He's said that he is happy to act in that space at this stage. So I'll put that. All in favour, please say aye. And against? That's carried unanimously.
Order, Madam Chair. Mayor Avondale, may I request that recommendations 6 through 12 be put jointly?
You absolutely can. Is everybody happy with that? Right, so I'll put 6 through to 12. Because Councillor Hopkins wants his cup of tea. That might be a bit cheeky. I'll put them all together. Is there any discussion on that, councillors? Right, well, I'll put that. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. And against? That's carried, and you're let loose, and we'll be starting back into it. I'll give you all a bit longer. 23. About 22. See you back at 20 minutes to, what's that? 12, 11. Thank you. All right, so we are back on and we're moving now to page 43, which is the adoption of the Code of Conduct. And Alex, I'll pass to you for a start on
Mr. Hope.
Mr. Hope.
Sorry, I haven't got too much to say about this one, but yeah, I mean, it's a necessary document for the operation of the council into the future. And really pass it over to you for any questions and comments.
And I guess this one here, just to touch on it, is a wee bit generic that across a number of councils it's been worked on with like LGNZ, and it will be superseded at some stage with a government code of conduct potentially coming in. So yeah, with that, do we have any questions, Councillor?
Yeah, look, I've got, my question is, there are two issues for me that are, I think, problematic with this document. And I'm just wondering how you might be willing to allow some conversation or discussion. I mean, I can try to frame my concerns as questions. And I mean, I do have one specific question, which is the references in the recommendations to the fact that the government is providing a standardised document as a replacement. I guess the two questions I have in relation to that are, when will that be forthcoming, and on what basis will it be produced? Will it be engagement with the sector or simply a decree from the government? But more generally, how can we have a conversation about if we have any concerns prior to it being voted on?
First of all, on the central government part of it.
So the government did have a group, I think, from the local government commission that was working on the code of conduct. And they had asked for some comments. That they did a consultation which wasn't very well publicised. I think they presented their findings to the minister and were asked to do some further work on that. So I'm not sure of the timing. They had hopes that it was before the end of this calendar year. It might actually stretch into next year, I suspect now, in terms of the timing of that.
And I guess in other issues, maybe if you sort of raise what the issues are so that we're across that, we won't start that debate on that. That can be part of the wider discussion. But if you can raise your areas of concern, we'll start there.
Well, the two concerns I have are, in my view, the code of conduct as drafted, I think, by local government New Zealand in the term of the previous government, I think confuses behaviour and beliefs, or, if you like, personal conduct and political conviction in a way that I don't think is entirely appropriate. And I continue to be concerned about the fact that the process by which codes of conduct complaint are made do not, in my view, allow for natural justice and allow an opportunity for any member about whom a code of conduct is made to actually make a submission or presentation to their peers prior to there being a conclusion drawn as to whether what the penalty should be.
I guess.
Well, I speak to the latter one first. The only people who can make codes of conduct complaints are us and the chief executive on behalf of staff. So members of the public and others cannot use this instrument. So this is a process, access to which only applies to us. If it is decided that a code of conduct complaint needs to be investigated or pursued, it goes to either via you or through the chief executive or both. It ends up being considered by an independent investigator whose name will be proposed at some point in the triennium, and there'll be a list of people from whom the independent investigators are drawn. The independent investigator will investigate the code of conduct, form a view as to what the punishment or penalty should be if there is to be one. That will be presented to council and implemented. There is no point in that process where the person about whom the code of conduct complaint has been made by people in this room can actually put a case to the people in this room with regard to what the independent investigator has proposed. And I regard that as a breach of natural justice. And I don't think it is equitable.
I guess, first of all, from my perspective, there is an opportunity, I believe, for that before it even reached the code of conduct stage, for us to try and, deal with those matters outside of that process. And if that doesn't then work, then we move on to the code of conduct, more formal space. Then the person who is independent, who's making a ruling, needs to be the person that makes that decision on that. Then I don't think pressure one way or the other from the other members when you called in an independent investigator is appropriate. That would be my take, but I'm happy to see if anyone else has an issue in that space.
So just to comment, I mean, you're right in what you say, but it's very deliberate that it doesn't, engage the members of the council, so that it keeps it as an independent process. It's not, based on any ties or loyalties that may be around the council table, or animosities for that matter. So it's very deliberately that it keeps it independent. In terms of natural justice, the person being complained about has the opportunity to make their representations to the independent investigator. And to comment on what their draft findings might be in that regard. For me, probably the bit of natural justice that isn't there is there isn't any right of appeal in there. And speaking to the consultation on the government's work that they were doing on the code of conduct, that was something that I commented in response to that. That for it to have natural justice, there should be some ability to have right of appeal. But within the framework we're given, we don't have that at this stage. That's something that we could look at. But I think realistically, we're not going to decide that today. And so if you weren't happy with this code of conduct, the code of conduct from the previous triennium would hold over whilst we did some work on that. But essentially, this reflects the code of conduct from the previous triennium. I think, Arlene, there hasn't really been amendment to it since then.
No, nothing major.
And I guess there's probably a need to protect individual kind of, your own privacy in there as well. So I think that's where it could step into some uncomfortable spaces if we're basically moving in and out of an independent role. I think if we've moved into that space, then we need to probably keep it in that independent space.
Yeah, I still think there's a principle of common law that you have the right to be judged by or to appear before a jury of your peers. And to the extent that, as I said at the start, that the only people who can file a code of conduct complaint are us, about one of us. The process, yes, the person about whom the complaint is made, there are steps that precede the appointment of an independent investigator. And the person about whom the code of complaint has been lodged can submit to that person, but Alex has said there's no right of appeal, and even if the code of conduct said that the independent investigator's report has to be received and approved by council, but as the document stands, we receive it, but we have no opportunity whatsoever to say we don't agree with it.
So that's as written. You do have the opportunity to change that. That's one of the options in there. The last council chose that the findings of the investigator would be binding, and so that's what's reflected in here. You could choose to change that to that the findings would be put to the council for the council to agree upon.
Well, I'm happy. I'll foreshadow that I'll move an amendment accordingly when the motions are put.
Oh, understood. So we're going to move on to Councillor McCone, then Councillor Lewis.
Yeah, to carry on from where Councillor Hopkins is. I presume this is also a procedural matter as opposed to anything else for the new triennium. But where I'm coming from is it stated here that there's a local government amendment bill is currently before the governance. And if we don't adopt anything here, we revert back to what we decided in 2023. So for the sake of everybody under pressure and trying to get stuff done, why don't we just do that and wait till the government come out so we've actually got something to work on?
Certainly an option.
And may I comment?
Yep.
Just to make you aware, when the government does bring something out, we will not have the option of changing that. It will be imposed on us.
Councillor McCone.
I may reply to that. So that'll be the law, which we won't be able to change anyway. So whatever we decide today, it has been, won't be effective when the new law comes in. Is that correct?
Yes, that's my understanding. Whatever we decide today will only last until the new binding one comes in.
Councillor Hopkins, then Councillor Holden.
Yeah, just if I may, Madam Mayor Avondale, through you, the other matter that concerns me is I mentioned at the start that this is a code of conduct. And if you look at if you look at page 48, you look at 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. They're pretty much all about how we behave to each other and to other people and so forth. But if you look at 4 and if you look at 1.2 on page 49, we've moved the grounds of consideration from a code of conduct to a code of conviction. And in my view, the code of conduct is about behaviour. It is not about political belief. And I do not wish to engage in a debate about how we engage with mana whenua or the rūnaka or indeed te tiriti or anything of the sort. What I do want to say emphatically is that I believe that is a matter for consideration in another context. It does not belong, in my view, in the code of conduct. And the references on 1.2 to tino rangatiratanga and partnership are, in my view, quite problematic and are arguably ultra vires if you look at the Local Government Act and what it says in relation to the Treaty of Waitangi in Part 1. If you look at the Section 14, Part 2 principles relating to local authorities, which are also quoted later on in the document from the Chief Executive regarding relevant acts, where the provision in the Act under 14D, a local authority only says a local authority should provide opportunities for Māori to contribute to its decision-making processes. Now, quite apart from the fact that in my view, puts at risk our relationship with mana whenua and the rūnaka, that is substantially less than acknowledging in the Code of Conduct, tino rangatiratanga and partnership. And those are matters I'm perfectly happy to have a conversation or a debate about them, and I'm perfectly happy to accept that we must have a document. Section 81 in Part 6 of the Act requires us to have a document relating to how we're going to deal with our commitment to Māori, but it's not in the Code of Conduct. And I believe Clause 4 or Condition 4 in Section 1.2 should be removed.
If I can ask a clarification question around that, is that in our current Code of Conduct that's operational?
Sorry, I don't know off the top of my head. Sorry, I'd have to check. Yeah.
So what I guess what I'd like you just to have a think on is you're asking for a movement away from what we've already approved. And so I guess, is it going to see a change in the way we operate with mana whenua? So I just put that what we're doing is not adding something new in. We've worked under this pretense, and any kind of decision-making capacity for our rūnaka goes through a totally different process, and we don't have that in our council. And if we chose to adopt that in the future, that would be something that we would have to make a decision on. So this, I question what we're changing.
Well, look, fair point, and it's entirely up to the meeting to accept or reject the argument I'm putting forward. I know I have raised this matter before, and I know when this Code of Conduct was adopted previously, the views I have expressed or the arguments I put were not shared by the majority of people. This is a new council, and I believe now, as I did then, that I'm genuinely and sincerely not endeavouring to debate the relationship we have with mana whenua or with Māori, or the need to have documents and agreements relating to those matters. My specific concern is that I do not believe a code of conduct, which is about behaviour, should incorporate issues of belief.
Thank you.
And I think that's ideologically and intellectually wrong.
Understood. And when we come to moving, we'll see if you want to move
Yes.
the amendment at any stage. We'll cover that off procedurally. Councillor Holden. Sorry, was it Councillor McCone I had? I'm just about to. No, we're covered. Is there any other Councillor Panini Taiti?
Thank you through the chair. I'm actually supportive of 1.2, and I think it's just around the principles that actually help guide the behaviour. So this sets out the behaviour that's expected of elected members, but the principles in accordance with our obligations for the Te Tiriti is just a guideline to help us work together in partnership, and it helps us protect each other's opportunity to voice our equitable opinions or how we feel or our stances, and it actually helps to protect us. So I don't see it as a negative perspective, and I can understand Councillor Hopkins' views though, but it's not in terms of political kind of view. It's really using it as a guideline, really. It's just to acknowledge the kaupapa that we can actually work together in harmony with as much as possible. I do take your point in terms of the process that you raised before, that there are some things that could be missing that we could help enhance the process around the mediation. And I think from experience, like that should be acknowledged, and we should be working towards something to just to help maybe refine that process. So I do acknowledge Councillor Hopkins' view around that, and the right or the opportunity to have an appeal or a step phase before that. So that's just some learnings from my last couple of terms that I've been on council. But yeah, I'm supportive of retaining it. We shouldn't be fearful, like of it. It adds value into how we can effectively work together. Thank you.
Right, any other comments there, councillors? Right, I'll take a motion.
Yeah, Mayor Tavendale, I will move, perhaps if I may move 1 and 2 as follows. I move that 1, 2 and 3 as follows. I move that council adopts the draft code of conduct as attached, with the removal of clause 4 on page 48 and the deletion of section 1.2(1) and 2 on page 49, in accordance with Schedule 7, Clause 15 of the Local Government Act 2002, until the government provides a standardised document as a replacement.
Okay.
Could you repeat that, please? And with the removal of clause 4 on page
48.
48 of the agenda.
Thank you.
And the removal of section 1.2(1) and 2 on page 49 of the agenda, in accordance with Schedule 7, Clause 15, etc., etc.
Just a second. I'm just calling for a seconder. Seconded by Councillor McCone. Right, so would you like to speak to that motion?
Yes, look, very briefly, I've raised the matter. I would genuinely and sincerely ask councillors to accept that this is a concern I have about where matters are addressed, not how they are addressed. And I'm not seeking in any way to challenge the need for agreements relating to Maori and to mana whenua. I do believe in the South Island we have an issue where the Act continues to refer to contributions for Maori, and yet we have repeatedly been told by Kaitahu and by Justin that there are various concerns they have about that generic provision because they believe they have tino rangatiratanga, and they wish the relationship to be with them particularly rather than Maori more generally, which is why they have repeatedly advised us, for the sake of argument, that they don't support a Maori ward, or if there's going to be such a representation, it will be tribally derived, not ethnically derived. So in my view, there are issues that do, to my mind, impinge to some extent on our relationship with the Rūnaka and Kaitahu in the document as it stands. And I believe better that they are addressed elsewhere in an agreement that we have with Kaitahu, which will probably start formulating on the 6th of December when we go to the marae.
Thank you, councillor Ryan.
Thank you. I won't be supporting councillor Hopkins' amended motion here. I think I acknowledge his concerns, but I think Te Tiriti is legally effective, and I think we have to think about our role in code of conduct of stewardship and how we can empower, enhance, and work alongside mana whenua to protect our resources in our community. And keeping it in here isn't about political belief or race. It's just reflecting the way that we want to behave, which is with respect and collaboration and fairness. And the principles of Te Tiriti, that's what they stand for partnership, for participation, for protection. And that's the sort of principles that I want to see guiding how we operate as a council, how we work with each other and with our community. And for me, that's good governance. It aligns with the values that we already aspire to in this role. So I would prefer to keep the code of conduct as it is, although open to discussion around that appeal process when code of conduct issues are raised.
Right, is there councillor Thowning?
The way I interpret it, I go back to on page, it's not telling you what page it is, but number 1 on the members' commitments to treat all people fairly. I just read the whole document as everything in there is applying to everyone in the same way. So the language in that the sections referred to is relatively vague anyway. And as I said, it sort of applies to everyone. Although in this case, it does refer specifically to iwi, I can't see why we wouldn't apply that to everyone.
Any other speakers to that? Just from my perspective, I'll be voting against that motion. I think our relationship with our Rūnaka in particular is really important right now. We're basically looking at a motion that actually changes the way we tell them we're going to operate. And I think that change is problematic. I think that this shows a bit of an intent in how we want to operate with them. There is no binding things rather than that partnership participation. It's how we want to have an open relationship. I think we choose our battles a long way, and from my point of view, this is absolutely not one of them. I respect where you're coming from, councillor Hopkins, but I also think that this is going to be ingrained, and it's a short time we're looking at this document for before we then move on to one that I'm sure will also retain some clauses in the same kind of ilk, if you will. So I think this is a battle we don't need to have, and I think our relationship with the Rūnanga is incredibly important. We're about to move on to the marae, and I don't think we need to right now make changes that show an intent. And I think you've got to not underestimate the fact that this will be taken with an intent. Would you like your reply to apply?
No, I'm happy for the matter to be voted on. I would just simply note that the governance advisor has informed us that the code of conduct to be adopted in whatever form it finally is needs the support of 75% of us.
Noted. All right, so I will put this motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye. Sorry.
Okay, we'll put that one more time, sorry. So this is the changes as discussed by councillor Hopkins, just to make sure we're clear. All
Just voting on the amendment.
on the amendment to the original motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
So we've got 2 ayes there with the mover and the seconder. And those against? No. So no. Yeah, so yeah, all others were against, so that's lost. So if we go back to the original recommendation, do I have a mover in that space? Moved by councillor Lewis, seconded councillor Thowning. Right, any discussion on that? You can start if you want to, Councillor Lewis, it's not a requirement.
Thank you, Mayor Tavendale. Yeah, as has been said, I think the reality of it is that if this is going to be replaced, it is a status quo, but I think it's important that we actually show our direction as to where we sit at the moment. And I'm happy enough for this as it stands.
Thank you. Councillor Schlack.
Yeah, I just echo what Councillor Lewis says to me. We've already operated on this for at least the last triennium, and we know very well that a policy or a code of conduct is coming our way. So I really don't see the point in changing it.
Anyone else who would like to speak to the motion? Would you like your right to reply, Councillor Hopkins?
No.
Oh, sorry, it wasn't Councillor Hopkins. Councillor Lewis, would you like your right to reply?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
All right, so I'll put that. All in favour, please say aye. And against?
Could I have my vote
Carried.
against, could I have my vote against recorded, please?
So it was just Councillor Hopkins that voted against, am I correct? Didn't, and so Councillor McCone abstained? And everyone else? Just making sure we've got that all down.
Got it, thank you.
Yeah, Tavendale, I think the minutes should note that the 75% test was met.
We can note that if you'd like.
I'm more than happy to move 2 and 3. I move 2 as it stands, and I move 3 in an amended form predicated on the comments of Mr. Palmer earlier about the investigation. My recommendation 3 is agrees to continue with the current arrangements of a 2-step investigation process and the investigator's decision to be referred to council for approval for as long as the code is in place.
Okay, so just make sure we've got that down.
Thank you.
Do we have a seconder for that? You can ask the seconder for it. Excuse me.
I guess do we know what other councils have in place if it is not binding? Like is that usually for it to be referred to council for approval, or are there other options for that sort of another step in that process?
So as far as I'm aware, most councils have it as binding. Where those don't, it is for, you know, the investigator makes recommendations for council to consider.
And just for clarification, is this one that will come back through the government process, or is this our independent process?
So my understanding is this will be taken care of in the government process as well. So it'll be code of conduct and a process for investigating those code of conduct complaints.
Right. So do I have a seconder in the motion? Councillor McCone? Right. So Councillor Hopkins, do you want to speak?
Look, just very briefly, this is not as contentious as my amendment to recommendation 1, in my view. And it simply acknowledges the point that Mr. Palmer made, which he said he's also raised with the government ministers and officials, which is that there is no right of appeal. And I just raise the issue of natural justice. And the only change is everything about the code of conduct that's in here, and I take it you've all read it, will apply. The only difference is that the only people with the power to lay the charge are the people who will ultimately arbitrate on the matter of whether the charge stands or not. In other words, it will be up to us, not something that we are obliged to accept by way of an automatic receipt of the independent investigators' report and recommendation. So I just believe it's almost inevitable that it won't be employed or used. But on the rare occasion that it might be, I think this actually honours principles of natural justice better than the previous solution.
Now I'm just going to pass to the CE who was just mentioned in that, just to make sure he's.
Yeah, I just wanted to make it clear I wasn't advocating for this amendment in that process. I made an observation in regards to a comment around natural justice. And in responding to that, I'd ask you to consider, do you want to be sat in judgment of your colleagues around this table? Do you want your colleagues sat in judgment of you, or do you want that process to be independent? Because that's what we're talking about. If you want, a right of appeal in there, you could insert a right of appeal so that, if a person complained about is not happy, there's a process further to that we could refer it to someone else to review that, again, independent. So you have every right to have that, amendment that Councillor Hopkins has proposed for it to come to you, and you be in judgment of your colleagues, or they be in judgment of you. Or if you really think, there should be some right of appeal, you could insert another step where someone could appeal, and we get someone else to review the investigator's report, someone who's trained in these matters to do that.
Right, do we have anyone else who wants to speak to this motion? Nope. Okay, well, I'll put it. So just so we're all clear, it's basically the same as it was, but referred to council for approval. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And against? That's carried. Now, I think that was, I can't see Courtney on the screen at the moment, so I'm not sure if she.
Sorry, I am here. I voted in favour.
Vote in favour. So I took that as everyone voted in favour of that motion? Unanimous? Am I correct there? Fantastic. So that is passed.
Thank you.
No worries. And that was those two, wasn't it? So now we will move. I need to learn to use my page we're moving to.
63.
63. Moving on to page 63. Which is adoption of standing orders. Do you want to do one too?
Pass it to Mr. Hope again, as he's so essentially, before Mr. Hope comes in here to speak to his report he's authorised, standing orders is essentially the rules of the game, how meetings are conducted both in the run up to those meetings and during the meetings. So the standing orders that you have before you are fairly generic to local governments. They were essentially, with a few tweaks, developed by local government New Zealand, with the involvement of mayors, councillors and staff from councils to try and get some uniformity, but also learn the lessons from what can go well in councils and what maybe needs improving. So that's what you have before you in terms of proposal to adopt the standing orders in terms of how the council formally operates.
And just to probably speak to number 2 there. I'll pass on to Mr. Hope in just a second. I'll just speak to number 2 on the casting vote for the mayor, which I'm not certainly married to by any stretch, but I do feel that if we're in a space where we have equal numbers, that perhaps it would be helpful. But my position on that would be you vote the status quo if you're casting a casting vote in that space. So that's the position I'll take on that. But I'll pass on to Mr. Hope.
No, I couldn't possibly add to the summary that the Chief Executive provided, other than a note to myself to read more carefully who the authoriser is in future reports.
All right, any questions, councillors? Councillor McCone.
Right, I was going to move it, but that's okay.
Okay, any other questions first?
Yeah, I guess, Madam Chair, a general question either to Alex or Arlene. These standing orders are entirely plastic, aren't they? I mean, we can amend them as we see fit, right? May I then flag that I believe there needs to be additional thought given to meeting duration on page 23, how we deal with public excluded information, which is covered on page 59, and also the need for us to actually incorporate in our agendas information in the public excluded recommendations as outlined on page 88. I think at the moment, we're probably operating ultra vires in that regard.
Do you want
Does he want to
respond
explain those? Or?
Okay, very briefly, page 88, there's a sample of a notice of motion to go into public excluded. And there are other references to it elsewhere in the standing orders. And what the sample recommendation actually says is you have to name the people who are allowed to be there, in addition to the elected members. And you have to say why they are allowed to be there. And we don't do that. And I suspect if somebody wanted to be pedantic, they could challenge us on that legal point. So in my view, that is a matter that we need as a result of looking at these standing orders to address and amend our public excluded policies.
Okay, we'll start on that one for a moment. I'll give the CEO a wee bit of time to actually get across what's.
The matter I'm citing is shown on page 88 of the draft standing orders that have been circulated to us.
Absolutely.
My understanding of that was that applies to members of the public who are allowed in some circumstances to be present for public excluded items, and then it's recorded in the minutes that they're present as they usually have an interest or in what's going on. Is that, I don't think if that applies to staff members.
No.
Does it say?
If you read page 88, under 2, it says quite clearly that, and then bracket name of person or persons, is permitted to remain at this meeting after the public has been excluded because of their knowledge of specified topic under discussion. This knowledge, which will be of assistance in relation to the matter to be discussed, is relevant to that matter because. So I take it that that's something that's actually statutorily required.
Thank you for raising it. I hadn't seen that, but happy to add it into our agendas. No problem with doing that.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm still not quite understanding what the point is. I mean, it's if a member of the public wants, all other public have been excluded. That's what it's referred to. A public, you have made a motion to exclude the public, and you are making an exception for a member of the public to remain. Yes, that's what the intent of that is. So, anyone else around the table are either, elected members or officers. They are not public. And so it's only for reasons of, if there are members of the public that you are not excluding, that you have a reason why a member of the public, when you're going into public excluded, is being allowed to continue within the meeting.
Well, it may be what we are not doing is saying who other than yourself, the mayor and the councillors, is able to be there because they can make a valid contribution. And whether that refers to identifying particular staff members with expertise.
Can I just truncate this process a wee bit? Point taken, and we will make sure we look at the wording and that it's we abide by it.
And just for clarity, I mean, public excluded means no public allowed in there. Technically, officers are allowed in there, but I have a process working with the team as to who is permitted to stay out of the officer team within there. There's not an expectation that any officer could stay, and so we do implement that. For example, in a recent example of matters considering contractual arrangements around employment of myself, there was only, I think, one officer allowed to stay within there, which was our governance services lead. So we do exercise judgment on who should be remaining from the officer team when we've got public excluded. But this specific clause refers to if you are making an exception for a member of the public to attend a session where public have been excluded.
Now, Councillor Hopkins, do you want to move on to the meeting duration?
Flagged that on page 23, meeting duration. Sorry, I just flagged that. I don't think this is contentious. What I would suggest the standing order should be amended because at the moment, meeting duration is as follows: unless a meeting resolves to continue, which has to be done by vote, meetings cannot sit for more than 2 hours without a break of at least 10 minutes, continue for more than 6 hours, including adjournments from when it is convened. Now, in my view, in the last triennium, it was common for meetings to run from 9 to 5 or thereabouts. This standing order means that at 3 o'clock we have to vote to carry on. And I believe that we would be better to actually amend the meeting duration so that we are allowing ourselves to continue for more than 8 hours rather than 6.
I can explain that.
So I think this is about meetings, not the meeting day, not a series of meetings, but any individual meetings. So that so I think if you look back, you won't find meetings of the council or committees that extended beyond 6 hours. I stand to be corrected, but I think if you look back, you won't find that. Look at the recording times. There weren't meetings that extended beyond the 6 hours.
I reckon we had quite a few meetings that went until about 5 o'clock last term.
They may have felt like that, but I'm not sure they were actually.
We did. Yes, councillor, we did go past 5 o'clock, but usually that was because there was an audit and risk committee meeting in the morning, and then council started at 11, and it's the starting time that, yeah.
So I think we can operate within those bounds, and it keeps us mindful of how long we're making people watch us talk.
Well, the only other one, the only other matter, and I have been concerned about this for some time, I don't think we have enough a clear policy around the release of information from public excluded. And if you look at page 59, it's very general and imprecise and doesn't put any timeframes. Now, I have circulated to councillors and to Mr. Palmley a view as to what the law says. We don't have a single universal statutory timeframe. But I did also circulate what I thought was very sensible policies regarding the release of public excluded information from the Timaru District Council. And I think arising out of our adoption of the standing orders, we should actually consider and adopt policies regarding the release of information from public excluded session, perhaps using the Timaru District Council's policies in this regard as a model.
Just to respond to that, and it's something for us to vote on, but I think that needs to be some more time. So that's probably more a discussion of whether or not this document stays on the table, on the table, and we basically continue on with the last term's standing orders, or if we vote as the document stands at the moment, because I don't think we can make those changes properly today. So that's probably our discussion today.
I completely agree. I'm not asking for the discussion. What I'm flagging is, can we have, as a result of considering these standing orders, can we please look more specifically at how we deal with the release of information from public excluded sessions and incorporate that in any standing orders going forward?
I think we need some work in that space. I do agree that we need to be really clear in that space, but also recognising that we've got this superseding happening in front of us, that maybe we need to work out our own policy in that space that might sit outside of the standing orders, but I'll put that to the meeting anyway. Councillor Cowles.
Actually, with that in mind and the fact that we're obviously going to be revisiting this at some point, I'm happy to wait and look at that as another discussion. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Now, I had originally Councillor McCone was happy to move. Are you still happy to move there, Councillor McCone? Well, we've got a mover there. Do we have a seconder?
Would it be prudent, based on the fact that you're going to have a look at what I raised with regard to page 88, that we adopt the recommendation one is modified to read adopts the standing orders for council?
Just point of order. No, I don't think that is proper. I think if this loses, people have heard what you've said, but we've already had a shadow announcement that someone was willing to move. So if this loses, because people know that that's something you're foreshadowing.
If I just want, what we heard from the governance advisor was that the matter would be looked at. So there was agreement that there may be something on page 88 that involved possible consideration. So all I was going to suggest was that the words with amendments is agreed.
Well, I don't think we've agreed any amendments, Councillor Hopkins. So still looking for a seconder, Councillor Cowles. Right. Any discussion there? Councillor McCone, did you want to? No. Any other discussion? Right, well, I will put that, so that is the, I'm just lost on my pages again here a wee bit.
So we're just voting on one or all of them?
Sorry.
I'll just go to page 63. So we'll take all three if that's your intention, Councillor McCone. And Councillor Cowles, you're happy with that? Right, so I'll take all three together, or all four together. So I'll put, sorry, Councillor Hopkins.
Just speaking to that, I wanted to thank you for the comment you made earlier about the casting vote. I personally was going to support the idea of you having a casting vote, but mention the fact that the convention has always been that the casting vote is in favour of the status quo. And whereas I wouldn't wish to bind you, it is reassuring to hear you say that's how you would exercise that entitlement if should it come to pass. And I thank you for doing that and support it.
Thank you. Right, so I'll put that all in favour, please say aye. And against? That's carried unanimously. Time, right, so now we will move on to page 65. And this is our minute of appreciation for our outgoing elected members. So this is a record of sincere thanks, and that's to former Mayor Gary Kircher, who spent 9 years in the job of Mayor and 13 years as a councillor. Former Councillor Percival, who was Corridor Ward Councillor for 11 years, both of whom stepped down from those roles. Councillor Thompson, who was Councillor for Wahimo Ward for 4 years, who stepped down from that role. Councillor Blacklur, who was Oamaru Ward Councillor for 3 years. And Carol Watson, who was Community Board Member for Wahimo for 9 years. Councillor Lewis.
Just a correction, Mayor Kircher was mayor for 12 years, not 9.
He was too.
Sunny? Are you okay?
No.
Just looking at the board behind, he
I was
came
going
in
to say, I
2013.
think you were actually right.
4 terms.
So, Mayor for, and I wonder if the councillor was a shorter time than that. I'm not. Might be right. So 12 years and 13 years as councillor. And we've all just stood. Everyone's looking at the board now.
9 is good.
9 as councillor. I wondered if that was smaller. So I think it's 12 years as mayor and 9 years as councillor. Thank you, Councillor Lewis.
Thank you.
But yeah, just I guess from the chair want to express a absolute thank you for all of those roles. They're all incredibly taxing at times, and they've been really good stewards of our community and done a lot of work in that space. Particularly former Mayor Gary Kircher, who's been representing our community for a long time now, and he certainly put his heart and soul into that role. So just want to take a moment to appreciate that. Anyone else that would like to speak? No, well, I'll move from the chair that the council records that. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Ryan. Any other discussion? I'll put that. All in favour, please say aye. And against? That's carried unanimously. Right, so we're still running ahead of time, so we'll move on to the explanation of legislation by the Chief Executive on page 66.
So I'll start off with my usual apology on this, but this is something that we're required to do. So I will be talking a little while about the legislation, and I'm required to read out the contents of the report. I would say, though, however, that we do have a briefing session with our legal partner, Simpson Grierson, that will be an opportunity to explore this legislation and other legislation further to get a deeper understanding of that. However, the Local Government Act requires that at the first meeting of the council, following the election, An explanation is given of the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987 and appropriate provisions of the Local Authorities Members' Interests Act 1968, Sections 99, 105 and 105A of the Crimes Act 1961, the Secret Commissions Act 1910, sounds like an interesting one there, and the Financial Markets Conduct Act. An explanation of the Health and Safety at Work Act 2015 and the Public Records Act 2005 as it applies to council and elected members is also being provided. So the Local Government Act 2002 is the main piece of legislation that governs all of local government and how we operate and what we're able to do as a council. It spells out the purpose of local government, its general powers and specific bylaw making powers and the principles and processes that councils must abide by. So the purpose of the local government is defined in Section 10 of the Act. Currently, this is under amendment at the moment, but as it currently stands, purpose of local government is to enable democratic local decision making in action by and on behalf of communities and to promote the social, economic, environmental and cultural well-being of communities in the present and the future. And the role of local authorities is defined as to give effect in relation to its district or region, the purposes of local government, and perform the duties and exercise the rights conferred on it by or under this Act and any other enactment. The Act is based on the principle of general competence that enables the council to do whatever is necessary to fulfil its role and achieve its purpose, provided that isn't prohibited by other laws. As elected members, you are responsible for making key policy decisions that guide the council's activities and provide the direction of the district's future. And in performing your role, the council must act in accordance with the key principles set out in Section 14 of the Local Government Act, which is set out in Appendix 1. If any of these principles or aspects of wellbeing referred to in Section 10 are in conflict in any particular case, then the council should resolve the conflict in accordance with the first key principle by conducting its business in an open, transparent and democratically accountable manner. Personal liability of elected members. This is something to pay attention to. So whilst you effectively are the board of this organisation, liability differs from a director of a company. So Section 43 of the Local Government Act provides an indemnity by the council for elected members in relation to civil liability, both for costs and damages, if a member is acting in good faith and pursuance of the responsibilities or powers of the council, and an indemnity in terms of costs arising from any successful defended criminal action relating to acts or omissions in his or her capacity as an elected member. The Local Government Act, however, provides for a theoretical personal exposure for elected members to certain circumstances if the council has incurred a loss due to the actions of the council. This loss must arise out of one of the following situations. The council unlawfully spends money, the council unlawfully sells or disposes of assets, the council unlawfully incurs a liability, or the council intentionally or negligently fails to enforce the collection of money in its lawfully entitled that it's lawfully entitled to receive. So if this were to occur, the loss is recoverable as a debt due to the Crown and must be paid back to the council from each elected member jointly and severally. There are items in here, I won't go through all of these, that you could be used in defence of this, so it's not so open-ended. There are circumstances such as when you're acting in good faith or relied upon the information provided to you and professional and expert advice that would act as a defence in that. The Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, LGOIMA. This is something to become very familiar with if you're not already. Its intent is a good intent in terms of ensuring that local government is open and transparent, and the information we hold is open to people to freely access. So that's the stated purpose of the Act, to make official held information by local authorities more freely available and provide access to that information. And also to provide admission to meetings. So good to see Ray here today, exercising his rights under the LGOIMA to have free access to the meeting. But also there are some caveats on that in terms of ensuring that it's consistent with the public interests and preserving personal privacy. So the Act is broad. It doesn't define the word information, but it sees official information as any item of information held by the local authority. So official information is not limited to the documents, letters, reports, memoranda, or files that are held by me and my team. It relates to all information, including recordings, videotapes, computer tapes, memos, emails, including any information that is related to council business that you might hold on your personal devices. I think that's important to be aware of in that. That could be covered by Lagoima, and if we had a request in, we might be asking you to supply information that on a particular matter, including from your personal devices. So the heart of the Act is contained in the principle of availability set out in Section 5 of the Act. Anyone can make a request for information, and there are criteria that we apply, but the principle is that we freely make that information available unless there are grounds for refusal. And there are set out in the Act approximately 25 good reasons why official information can be refused, but our starting point is that that information should be provided unless there are very good grounds for that not to be provided to the requester. There's also the public interest test on that as well. So even if there was information requested that met that criteria for refusal, we have to apply the public interest test of actually should this information be provided in the public interest. I'm not going to read through the other items in there, but it's something that we can explore further in the discussions that we have and the briefing we have from Simpson Grierson in terms of access to meetings, order of papers and order of meetings. I will highlight within here qualified privilege. So section 52 and 53 of the Act provide that written or oral statements on any matter before a meeting of the council, committee or community board is privileged unless the statement is provided is proved to be motivated by ill will. So what you say in here is protected by legal privilege. That protection doesn't extend outside of here. So if you make a statement outside of official meetings to the press or otherwise, you're not protected by the privilege in that. Local Authorities Members' Interest Act 1968. I think this is something that you need to be familiar with as well. So you are now in a public office and you need to have regard to that in terms of what your interests are that may be in conflict with your interests in terms of looking after the public interest and fulfilling your role. Key elements in this, so contracts, the Act provides that no person can be an elected member if the total of all contract payments made to them by the council or a person that they are connected with exceeds $25,000 in any financial year. So you need to think about this in terms of yourself, but also your partner's spouse, etc., close family members. If you think that you may be exceeding that $25,000 per year, there is the ability to make a case to the Office of the Auditor General to get approval to have an exemption in that regard. You need to consider your pecuniary interests. So the Act provides that no elected member shall vote or take part in a discussion or any matter in which that person has direct or indirectly any pecuniary interest other than an interest in common with the public. So an interest in common might be, for example, voting on the rates rise. Obviously, that's going to affect all of us and all of you. That represents an interest in common rather than a pecuniary interest. The prohibition applies where the member's spouse has a pecuniary interest and where the member's or spouse holds 10% or more of the shares of a company or a controlling company with which it has a pecuniary interest. The Crimes Act 1961 needs to be considered as well. Section 99 defines, for the purpose of the Crimes Act 1961, an official as any member or employee of any local authority. So member means elected member, which is mayor, councillors and community board members. Section 105 provides that it is an offence punishable by 7 years imprisonment for an official to corruptly accept or obtain or attempt to obtain any bribe in respect of anything done or omitted to be done by the official in an official capacity. A person or making or attempting to make a bribe is liable to 3 years imprisonment as well. Section 105 provides that every official is liable to 7 years imprisonment who corruptly uses any information acquired in an official capacity to obtain directly or indirectly an advantage or a pecuniary gain for the official or any other person. The Secret Commissions Act 1910. This Act puts in legislation the principle that a person holding a position of trust, such as elected members as yourselves, should not make a profit through their office. The Act provides that elected members and officers are agents of the council, and that every agent commits an offence who corruptly accepts or obtains or solicits for themselves or any other person any gift or other consideration as an inducement or reward for doing or not doing any act in relation to the council's affairs, or for having shown favour or disfavour to any person in relation to the council's affairs. So beware of people offering gifts, I think it's fair to say under that one. And what do they want? Financial Markets Conduct Act 2013. Waitaki District Council does not currently offer any financial products to the public. If the council was in the future to decide to venture into this area of retail fundraising, it would have to comply with the requirements of the Financial Markets Conduct Act. The main purpose of this act is to promote the confident and informed participation of business, investors and consumers in financial markets, and promote and facilitate the development of fair, efficient and transparent financial markets. So this is something we need to have regard to going forward as we plan our way forward in terms of potential commercial opportunities as part of the financial strategy. And then almost finally, penultimate one, Health and Safety at Work Act 2015. This Act came into force on the 4th of April 2016 and provides a significant change to the current health and safety or the previous health and safety legislation. The Act allocates duties on those people who are in the best position to control risks to health and safety as appropriate to their role in the workplace, and for the person conducting a business or undertaking, as that's known as a PCBU. So the council in this instance is a PCBU. It's undertaking a business or undertaking, and it's to ensure, as far as reasonably practical, the safety of workers and others who may be impacted by the work that the business undertakes. One of the significant changes is the introduction of officers, and that is any person occupying a position in relation to the business or undertaking. So that covers myself, but that also covers yourselves as well. You're considered to be officers in this regard. Officers have an obligation of due diligence to acquire and keep up-to-date knowledge of work, health and safety matters, and to gain an understanding of the nature of the operations and the business or undertaking of the PCBU, and generally of the hazards and risks associated with those operations. And finally, the Public Records Act 2005. The Public Records Act's purpose is to provide a framework to keep central and local government organisations accountable by ensuring records are full and accurate and well maintained and accessible. The Public Records Act provides for the continuity of the National Archives and the role of the Chief Archivist. In the conduct of their affairs, you as elected members may receive information directly, for example, from constituents. So you'll need to consider whether that information meets the definition of a local authority record, and if so, we'll need to ensure that it's included in the council's records rather than hold on your personal records. I think that's it. Happy to answer any questions.
That's last slide.
I love definitions. So in the presentation that's coming in the next couple of days, I believe, from the lawyers, we are going to actually see that definition of a local authority record.
So I think in that session, that's the opportunity to explore all of that. What exactly is a local authority record, and help you think about what does that mean for you in your record keeping, and what you keep to yourself, but what you might need to supply to myself and my team to keep as an official record.
Yeah, just want to make sure I recognise it.
Councillor McCone, then Councillor Hopkins.
I'd like to clarify, there's a mistake in there, Alex, because it's my experience if you muck up, your spouse gets half, so therefore 50% of the pecuniary interest is owned by half, so everybody's got to declare it anyway.
What was the question?
Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, perhaps as much a note as a question, but it is a question. On page 68, yes, the Act doesn't define information, and the description there doesn't include things like text messages, but they would be included as well, wouldn't they? So if we were to text each other about some controversial matter, that could subsequently be discovered, am I right?
I'm mindful that whenever we text each other about controversial matters, Councillor Hopkins, yes, it does come under Lagoima. It is one of those things.
All right, so do I have a mover for the recommendation there? Councillor McCone and Councillor Holding. I'll put that unless there's any comments. No, all in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And against? That's carried, and I believe that was an aye for Councillor Linwood. Perfect. So that was passed unanimously as well. Right, so now we will move on to the election report. Lisa.
Thank you, Mayor Tavendale. This is the usual election report that comes through to council post a local authority elections that we've conducted in our district. It includes information about the voting documents and the results through this process. I would note the increase in voting turnout this year on the previous election, which is great to see, but I'm sure we'd all agree we'd like to see it higher still. And I'd also really like to thank the elections team, the comms team, and all the other helpers we had out collecting orange bins during this process as well. So it's been a huge effort by everybody, but the process went well, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Ryan.
Thanks, Lisa. Just in the report, it references the orange bins being very successful in the number of votes collected from them. But I don't see any numbers of, is there a breakdown of how many votes were put in through the bins and how the postal? Just, I guess, when we're looking about how to increase voter turnout, figuring out what methods work and didn't is important.
Certainly, I can look into trying to see if we can ascertain that information. All voting documents went straight to Elections NZ, but I will see if we can ascertain a breakdown.
Councillor McCone.
It's a statement, all the thing, but I'd just like to thank on behalf of everybody the amount of effort that went in there to try and get people to actually fill the piece of paper and put it in the bin. I don't think you could have done too much more. You tried hard, and as democracy says, you get what you get. So well done to those that do it.
Very confidence. The question, what do you mean?
I don't think we need to answer that. Right, so do I have a mover? Councillor Deputy Mayor Ryan and Councillor McCone. Any other comments? I'll put that. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And against? That's carried unanimously. So we'll move on to the confirmation of updated meeting schedule for the remainder of 2025. That has got some 2026 in it too, just for a bit of clarity moving forward.
Thanks. I'll take that as read if there are any questions.
Councillor Slack.
I just confirming because a little bit confusion about the next Waimo Community Board meeting, because it's still here as the 12th. It's also on our website. It's still on the 12th, but I believe it's been moved to the 17th.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. It was moved to allow some people to attend who are otherwise not able to on the 12th, and it has been advertised as moved, but I apologise that it wasn't updated in the report. I'll note that in the minutes.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, look, just a very minor question. It used to be that we would get a roster of councillors other than the appointed councillors to the community boards who were to attend, and that appears to have stopped. Does that mean that no councillor other than the two who are identified are expected to go to these community board meetings, or are we still going to be on a rotating roster, in which case will we be advised?
I still plan on us having a roster. It's something we haven't actioned as of yet, but absolutely, because I think that's a really good way of just involving councillors in that wider picture of our district and what's going on. So yeah, watch the space, it'll come. All right, any other questions on this? Councillor McCone.
I appreciate it's very hard to forecast so far out, but I see the last meeting this year is the 9th of December and the first one's the 27th of January, which is a 2-month gap. And while we all like our break, is there an opportunity in there, if this water things needs to be done, that we can drop something else in there?
Yes. Yes, so definitely we would hold an extraordinary meeting if it was required. Yes.
And I think it's fair to say, like, that's the official council meetings. There'll be plenty to do in that time with everything we have in front of us. We'll keep busy. All right, do I have a mover if there's no more questions? Councillor Lewis and Deputy Mayor Ryan, sorry. Right, any comments, councillors? I'll put that. All in favour, please say aye. And against, that's carried unanimously again. And we'll move on to confirmation of previous meeting minutes.
Oh, excuse me, Mayor, I have a list of changes that have been sent to me for those minutes, and I might just share them on the screen if that's okay.
Absolutely.
They're fairly minor, but it does seem to be the best way to do it.
Yep.
So, okay, so the first few changes are the ones from councillor Hopkins, and that final one is the change from councillor Schlack.
All right. So we'll just move on to 88, under the public forum, change to lowercase. In that public forum, also the name of Schultz is spelt wrong. It's got a Z on the end there.
Sorry.
All right, so moving on to 89, it doesn't look like it's going to change the intent of it all. Page 90 is to R, probably no change to the intent. Spaces added, no change to the intent, and there was one change, which is probably the only other thing of anything we need to worry too much about, which is the change from McCone to Councillor Thompson. So if everyone's comfortable, I might take a move from someone who was at that meeting. Is that how we?
I'll move the minutes.
Moved Councillor Hopkins, seconded Councillor McCone? No. We don't do matters arising per se. First of all, do I have a seconder on the minutes? Of someone that, Councillor Linwood, can we take her from? Yes, fantastic. Councillor McCone.
I have three queries really, because there was stuff carried over for the new council to make a decision on. And I'm just wondering where we're at with those and when they're coming up. There's the one on Beach Road. There is the KPIs recommended changes from Councillor Ryan that was put in that were for further discussion. And there's also the work done with corridor water supply and where it stands now with the facilitator with that resolution that's gone in there.
So I think we need to find a way of bringing those updates, and that's probably next meeting to sort of see where that's at or through briefing, but we can work through that. It's we don't as such do matters arising, so I won't take the time at the moment to do that, but take your point that there are some actions that we need to be clear on what the outcomes are. All right, so any other question or comments, I mean? Right, well, I'll put that all in favour with the changes that were up on the screen before. All in favour, please say aye. And against, that's carried unanimously again. And then we move to, was that same one? Then move to meeting close. You're not all free to go, but and yeah, so we'll close that meeting, and councillors, we will be meeting for a photo on the steps in the next 5 minutes. And for those listening at home, thank you very much.
Just in time.
Yeah.